Let's Speak Spanish, podcast number 13 for early intermediate, and today we're dealing with ser and estar, to be or not.
Hola Gordon,
Hola Cintia.
¿qué tal estás?
Estoy fenomenal, estoy súper bien
¿Y
hoy.
por qué estás súper bien?
Porque estoy contigo.
Oh.
Qué bonito.
Oh.
¿Y qué tal estás
Gracias.
tú?
Yo estoy muy bien también.
Ujú.
Sí,
Me alegro.
gracias.
Sí. Okay then, so ser and estar. Now we have dealt with ser and estar. We've kind of touched on it in the earlier podcasts, and I think in beginners podcast. Okay, we're coming back to it because it isn't something that you can just look at one time and grasp everything. Ser and estar are two of the most important verbs in any language, really.
Yes.
To be, the verb to be. And so we want to cover about some idiosyncrasies of ser and estar, and also when you would use it and how do you know when to use it. Okay, so we'll sort of take it up another level. Up another level. Are you ready to go up another level? Okay, so to start with the basics. Ser is a very permanent type of thing, yeah? And estar is a temporary type of thing. Okay, now that's the basic that we've covered. However, there's a bit more to it than that. Ser is what we would say is descriptive.
Yes,
isn't
ser
it?
is for descriptions, which in truth, if you think about it, is something permanent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Typically.
Things like, I'm English, I'm from England, I'm tall, I'm a teacher, I'm...
El cielo es azul, the sky is blue.
Yeah. Which is a description.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's always going to be the case. Now, what would happen if the sky that's normally blue is suddenly grey?
Now, because the sky is not normally grey, because the sky is blue, es azul, I would have to use the temporary or the mood verb, which is estar. So I would have to say, el cielo está gris.
Está gris. Okay.
And what I mean by that is, if I change the verb from ser to estar, you notice that it's temporary. This is not the way it is normally. Yeah. It's a state of the
exactly. Sky. Let me give you an example. Bananas.
Okay.
Okay, bananas.
I really want to
Let me give you an example. Bananas are yellow. Los plátanos son amarillos. Okay? So if you buy some bananas and they're not ripe, you would say, los plátanos están verdes todavía. So they're still green. And so you would use estar to show that this is not the usual situation. Yeah? Because estar is a state. It's a state of being. Okay? If the example I use is the United States in Spanish, the name is Los Estados Unidos. Los Estados Unidos. And the word for state comes from estar. Okay?
See?
Yeah. So estar is a state. So for example, states of marital status, it's the same word, marital status, is used typically with estar. Yeah? Because it's talking about a state you're in.
In Spain.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you go to other places in Latin America, they would use ser for marital status.
For marriage, I'm not sure about things like divorce and being single. I think we'd still use estar for being single. I'm not sure.
Just because some people have told me otherwise, and I just want to clarify. In Spain, we would tend to use the temporary verb estar for marital status.
For marital status. So, for example, I'm married. Estoy casado. Yeah. I'm divorced.
Estoy divorciada. O divorciado.
I'm single. Estoy soltero. I'm separated.
Estoy separada.
Now, I'm widowed.
Is that the man or the woman?
The man.
Estoy viudo.
Estoy. You would use estar with that.
O soy viudo también. Oh no, soy viudo.
Sí.
Soy viudo, estoy viudo. Oh, both.
Depends.
Soy viudo,
yeah?
estoy viudo. Both with that one.
Mm.
Good point.
Yeah, I tend to hear, I've heard permanent with that, ser, I haven't heard estar, but obviously
Estoy viudo.
it's something that you...
Es viuda, es viudo. Yeah, ser as well.
Yeah.
Ser. Maybe ser.
So it's interesting, isn't it?
More
Cynthia's from Spain, and she's not sure which one, and she's heard both. So it's really interesting that it depends. It really depends on I suppose what the person wants to present
when
when they're going to choose whether they would say soy viudo or estoy viudo.
Sometimes if you look at things on books, and I understand why they do it, because they have to give you rules, but sometimes they say, well, these adjectives you always use with ser, or you always use with estar.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them is not the case. You can change from one to another.
Yeah.
If it is something that you mean it's different from the usual, or this is the usual.
Yeah.
Things like, for example, roto or rota, broken, then typically, very, very, very likely it's going to be estar, because things are not normally broken as a normal state of being, no?
Mm-hmm.
They're normally, well, fixed, how
Sure.
you normally...
Yeah, they're normally
So,
working, aren't they?
Yes,
Yeah.
so roto would be something that you would use with estar.
Mm-hmm.
But other things like, for example, typical one, slim.
Yeah.
Okay, they say, slim, delgado or delgada, you use with ser. Well, yeah, it's true, and it's also true that you can use it with estar. Because if I say to you, I don't know, my brother is slim, mi hermano es delgado, what do you understand?
As a person, all of his life he's been a thin person.
Exactly.
That's how I see it.
It's a description.
Yeah.
This is the way he is.
Mm-hmm.
But if I say mi hermano está delgado,
Mm-hmm.
what do you understand?
Because you've used estar, I imagine that he has lost weight, and he isn't necessarily like that all the time. Yeah.
The state of his being now is slim.
Yeah. Yeah. Another example is when, for example, if you were to talk about a pretty woman, okay, good title for a film there. Talk about a pretty woman, you would say es guapa. La mujer es guapa. Okay. However, it's also common to say, joder, estás muy guapa hoy. Okay? And so you can use estar, you're very pretty today, to talk about the state if somebody's especially done themselves up, or they've got made an effort, they look particularly nice, then you use estar. Yeah? You look at yourself in the mirror and you go, oh, hoy estoy muy gordo. Yeah? Today I'm very fat.
It
estar.
happens.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah. Yeah.
Or hoy estoy buena.
That
I'm
happens
sexy
too.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So estar is talking about something that's out of the ordinary, out of the usual, out of the normal. Yeah? Quite often. Something that's a little bit more special or a little bit more unusual, a little different.
So in lots of occasions you can alter from one to another depending on what you really mean or what you want to let the other person know. If it's something that's the way it is, or if it's something that has changed or is different now, or it wasn't like this before, you can choose between ser and estar.
Okay.
Also, there's one thing we need to say about estar. We say that we use estar for location, position, but there's one thing for location, because if you say, for example, ¿dónde está la pizzería? What's pizzeria?
Pizzeria.
¿Dónde está where is the pizzeria? Okay? That is estar, because you're asking for location. However, if you ask for an event,
A concert,
party,
wedding.
yes, speech, something that is not a physical thing, then you need to use the verb ser. So for example, if you ask, where is the concert? then you would have to say ¿Dónde es el concierto? ¿Dónde es la fiesta? ¿Dónde es el discurso? So for events, that's the only.
And they would answer la boda es en la calle rather than está. Okay. So that's the little exception. Okay, we've come up to 10 minutes. How quickly these podcasts pass. Okay, so we're going to leave you there. Hope that's been valuable. We'll cover Ser and Estar again in the future for sure. Entonces, nos vamos y nos vemos.
Hasta luego.